So welcome everyone, and welcome the online guests to our poultice demonstration tonight. And this is a very popular lecture because we're looking at all the little bits and pieces that you can do to help the body in its process to heal. And they can be particularly helpful when something goes wrong, when things aren't quite right. They can speed up the healing. The first one we're going to look at is the humble onion. And everyone has an onion in their home. And the onion was the first poultice that I ever did. And I think in your book it's got the poultices there. And you can use onion cooked or you can use it raw. So we'll begin by looking at the cooked onion, and you steam it just like that with all the skin on top, because the bottom will hold everything in place. And ideally you steam it or you dry bake it. If you boil it, some of the healing properties are going to go into the water. And when it's hot and soft, you cut it in half, so what you're looking at is the rings. And what you can do, which I have since learnt, that you can squeeze that and you can put some of that hot cooked onion juice into a spoon. It'll be boiling, but when it gets onto the cold spoon, it'll come to just the right temperature, and then that can be put into an ear that is sore or aching. And then with the hot cooked onion, you wrap it up a few times. You might use a cloth. These are sheets that started to get a bit thin. I think they make the nicest poultice material. You know, the sheets that the 15-year-old boy puts his foot to, perfect. Puts it through, they're the perfect ones. And then you get it just the right temperature and you can put that on the ear, and then you might cover it with a plastic square. It needs to have a plastic square on it to keep it warm, because when it gets cold, you have to remove it. Some people will put a beanie on. I know when I first did this on my son, the first poultice I ever did, I think James just turned 45, something like that, so this is when he was 2. I had him breastfeeding, and I had the onion against my arm and against his ear so I could gauge the heat of it. And if it's too hot, he'll quickly tell you, isn't that right? And he fell asleep. And when I laid him down on the onion on a towel folded up about 4 times, because I knew that would, his little hot body on that, the onion, that would keep it warm. And he slept for 2 hours. And when he woke up, he was very happy. And he's never had another earache since. Wow. So compare that to my experience of 4 courses of antibiotics over 6 weeks with my first daughter. But I'm very thankful for that experience, because that experience, it got me to go in another direction. I thought there must be something else. But I also remember experiencing the frustration of not knowing what to do. And everyone's saying, don't play with the ears, they'll go deaf. Well, I don't want my daughter to go deaf, but I don't want to be on antibiotics for the rest of her life. The cooked onion poultice, it is so simple, and it was the old lady next door that told me about it. She was 85, I'm about 25. And of course she's not here anymore, so a lot of these remedies have been lost. I'm the grandmother now, and so very happily do I share it. A cooked onion can be used for an earache. When it gets cool, you need to take it off, and often that's enough. But if the earache comes back, what do? You just do it again. One lady I know, she did it for 7 days. Now by about the 4th day, most people are saying, most people might then go to the doctor. What'll he give you? Antibiotics. And when you stop the antibiotics, guess what? Most likely the earache comes back. After 7 days, it didn't come back. So what's the body saying? I don't know why it needed 7 days, but my son only needed a 2-hour compress. So what are you doing? You're listening to what the body says. The lady that needed the 7 days, she'd had earaches as a child and had antibiotic after antibiotic. So maybe now in her 40s, the body had to do something like that to go through that because it had been stopped for so many times. I don't know. But she kept doing it because it brought her relief. And if it brings you relief, what's the body saying? That's what I want you to do. That's what I want you to do. You can also use the cooked onion on a boil. And the beauty of it being on a boil, you don't really even have to wrap it up. Just obviously get it into the temperature that's not going to burn you, and just put that straight on the boil. And you might cover that with a plastic square and tape it or bandage it. And with a boil, ideally you leave it all night, or you leave it as long as you can. And the heat and the drawing power of the onion bring everything to one central spot. And the hot moistness of the onion actually softens the tip and it breaks open. In fact, I've had people say that they've had boils in times past and it's gone on and off for days. It's been so painful and it's painful to squeeze. But the cooked onion poultice, you leave that on, it brings it all to a head, softens the top, take it off, everything. In fact, this lady said she didn't even have to squeeze. It just all came out. And if it looks like it needs a bit more, well, put another one on. So remember, you're listening, you look at symptoms, the body's saying do something, and then you watch what your body's response is. If it didn't all come out, it might need another one. So they're the two places you would use a cooked onion. So now we're going to have a look at the raw onion. And it's quite possible that I might start crying, is that right? So when you cut up an onion, the onion juices, they loosen up the mucous membranes, and that's a clear indication that this raw onion is very good for colds. So if you've got a cold, cut up some onions and you'll breathe in the onion fumes. But what I'm first of all going to show you is what you can do for a sore throat. You can finely slice the onion. So get a few fine slices. So when the grandson or the teenager or the son puts his knee through the sheet, it's a good idea to fold them up into squares. This is a good size square. So we're making an onion poultice for the throat now, sore throat. And you just lay those little onions down like so, and then you pull the cloth over top and bottom and then put that round the neck. And then you might cover that with a scarf, or you might cover it with a little bit of plastic and then a scarf, and you can leave that on overnight. Your bed partner might complain about your perfume, but it eases a sore throat. I've had mothers say, my child's got strep throat, strep throat. I think, strep throat? What's this strep throat? It's just a sore throat. But obviously they've had a test and it's streptococci. It doesn't matter what it is, this will help it. So my children had sore throats, they had colds, they had everything that children usually get, and I never gave them drugs. I just used to use these simple, natural treatments. And I see them with their children today. They're doing the same thing to their children that I did to them. Why are they doing that? Because it works. And now I'm going to show you what you can do for a cough. And when a child or an adult, whatever age, gets a cold, it's not uncommon that they might cough for a few weeks. In fact, I've had ladies email me and say, my child had a cold and it's 2 weeks later and they're still coughing. And I write back and say, that's right. They will. But you know what? It'll pass. It'll pass. When the cough stops, it means it's done its job. So we're going to put this on the bottom of the feet. And we get a cloth and we put the chopped onion on. Depending on the size of the foot, maybe this was for a little 2-year-old, and you put the foot, the skin of the foot, straight onto the onion. And then you'll wrap this around the foot, or what some people will do is put a sock on and just put it down the sock. But then put a plastic bag on that. and you leave it there all night. And I remember being with my daughter and her little boy James, he was 3 at the time. He had a cold and he was coughing. She gave him a hot bath and put him to bed, and he coughed. After half an hour, still coughing, because we just thought, he'll fall asleep in a minute. But we could see he wasn't going to fall asleep. So we got him up, and we got a small onion, cut it in half, and put one on each foot, and put a sock over the plastic bag, I think, and put him back to bed. Not one more cough, not one cough all night. You almost have to experience it to see how amazing it is. See, the biggest pores in the whole of your body are in the soles of your feet, and anything that touches the soles of the feet, the body will absorb. That's why I'm very fussy about my footwear and about my socks, because you have nylon socks and your feet get hot, your body's going to absorb that nylon, the chemicals from the nylon. I'm also careful in the summertime what I put my feet on. I always have leather sandals. And this is also why barefoot walking is so good. You've probably heard about earthing, going barefoot on the grass. I'm probably a bit fussy about where I go barefoot on what grass. I'm not going to do that if there are dogs and putting their droppings there. There's a bit of common sense there. Now I'm going to make an onion cough syrup. So there's lots of things you can do with onion. So I've chopped up an onion, and I'm going to put approximately a teaspoon of honey on top of there, and then another layer of onion, and then another teaspoon of honey, and another layer of onion. I'm starting to cry. If you don't cry when you cut up the onion, that's a worry. It must be an irradiated onion. And you keep doing this until you've filled your jar. This is just the right amount. And then you let that sit for 24 hours. After 24 hours, you will have a syrup. So this time tomorrow night, we can have a look at this, and you'll see that there's a syrup formed. So at the moment, we've just got this thick, gooey, sticky honey. Now on top, I should do about 2 teaspoons. At the moment, we've got layered in the jar, thick, sticky honey, and if I move it, I don't see any fluid there. I've just got thick, sticky honey and chopped onion. By the end of our lecture tonight, when I tip that up, you'll see a clear, fairly runny fluid. That's the syrup starting to form. And by tomorrow night, that's 24 hours, you'll see a fluid that comes up to about here. It'll be like an amber, very runny fluid, and that's your onion syrup. And you can strain your onion out, and you can keep that cough syrup in your fridge. Well, I don't know how long you can keep it in the fridge, because it never lasted long in my house. But a German lady said, I've had a jar in my fridge for 8 years. Excuse me, the onion got my respiratory going. So that's the onion. And we're going to look at a relative of the onion now, which is garlic. And this is a nice garlic. I always look for the purple ones. So you want to have a look at I was going to say Australia, but I'm in America now. So I try not to get the Chinese ones. And if you press it down, you can open it up easily. And this is your natural antibiotic. In your book, there's a recipe for the flu bomb. And the flu bomb has crushed garlic in it. I don't say how much, because it depends how much you dare. Some people can handle A couple of cloves, some people can handle only one clove. Also a little bit of grated ginger, sprinkle of cayenne pepper, or half a teaspoon if you can handle it. Drop of eucalyptus oil, only a drop, there's definitely a measurement there. One lady rang up and she said, Barbara, I can't use this eucalyptus oil. I said, why not? She said, it says on the bottle, not fit for human consumption. I said, we're not asking you to drink the bottle. It's one drop. In Australia, you can buy eucalyptus cough lozenges. What do you think's in the cough lozenges? Eucalyptus oil. So only one drop. Yes, you'd probably be in trouble if you drank half a cup, but I think that's a bit of common sense, isn't it? Now what I'm doing now, this is what you do to a baby. You could do it to a newborn baby, you could do it to any baby. So I've got a little cloth that's a strip, and that looks like about 8 inches long, about a bit more than an inch wide, and I've put some fine slices of garlic on there. And I'm going to cover that over, and I'm going to pretend that the palm of my hand is the bottom of the foot. So I've got a layer of cloth between the fine slices of garlic and the skin. If that garlic touches the skin, it will blister the skin. Not so with the onion, but definitely with the garlic. And you can do this to a baby any age, and within a couple of minutes you can smell it on their breath, because it takes 1 minute for 1 drop of blood to go around the whole body. So this is a great way to get garlic into a baby if they've got a little bit of a chesty cough, or if they've got a head cold, a bit snuffly, then you can put the garlic on their feet. I used to put it on my son James. I realise now, and I didn't realise at the time, that we lived in a house that backed onto a swamp, so my children often got chest colds. When I moved to the rainforest, high and dry, no more chest colds, or very rare. But when he was 3, he used to get them a lot, so I'd finely slice the garlic, wrap it on his feet, put a sock and a shoe on, and send him off to play. So every step he takes, what's happening? A little bit more, a little bit more. At the end of the day, when I took his shoes and socks off, and the garlic off, the garlic was like bits of yellow dried leather, not one bit of juice left in it. It had all gone into James. So that's a way that you can get the garlic into the little ones. Although I find you crush garlic into mashed avocado and a bit of chopped tomato and salt, and put it on some crackers. I find even little ones will quite enjoy that. But garlic is a potent antibiotic, and you can use it as such. If you want to use it as an antibiotic, you would probably need probably at least 3 of those medium-sized cloves a day. And you could have it in the flu bomb, or you could crush it into a bowl of hot soup, or you could put it on a slice of sourdough toast and put avocado on top. But that garlic going in has a great effect for a chest cold or a head cold. And now we're going to look at ginger. And ginger, you'll see that it's in the flu bomb. It's a heating herb. If someone has been out shoveling snow and they come in and they're extremely cold, give them a cup of hot ginger tea, and you will see that they will warm up quite quickly. So you can use ginger internally and you can use it externally. So first of all, we'll look at it internally. Internally, you can grate it on this little fine grater, probably about a teaspoon, and you pour a cup of boiling water on it. Let it just sit for about 10 minutes and strain it, and there's your ginger tea. So that hot ginger tea can be used to warm someone up. It can be used for someone's got a cold, sore throat. It also can be used for anyone that's got an upset stomach. So it's an anti-nausea herb. So it's not only a heaty herb, but it's an anti-nausea herb. If you buy seasickness or car sickness tablets, you'll find they're just compressed ginger. So anyone who's got a bit of nausea, so maybe if someone's pregnant, they can suck on those car sickness, or they can put a lump of ginger in their mouth and Just give that a little suck over a while, or they can have the ginger tea. So you can use it externally as well. Now what I do with the cling wrap, I fold it up a few times so it's a little bit more usable. And on top of that I'll put this square because I'm about to make a ginger poultice. And ginger poultice is specifically used for joint pain. So this can be gout, arthritis, and I don't ever peel it. Obviously, if it's dirty, I'd wash it. And I'm going to finely grate it, and it can be used for any joint pain. It's very effective at lower back pain, especially if there's inflammation. If there's inflammation in the joint, if there's inflammation in the back, and you apply the ginger poultice, within about 20 minutes, the skin gets very hot. It appears that the ginger is pulling the inflammation out of the joint to the skin. Because I have applied this to people with sore backs, not often, mostly it gets very hot, and they say to me, it's not getting hot at all. That tells me the pain isn't due to inflammation, because if it was inflammation, it would get hot. Can you see that? That's about, I've put probably maybe a really heaped teaspoon of ginger on there. And now I'm going to make the poultice, where you fold over the top and the bottom and then the two sides. So now I have like a little parcel. And the beauty of this little parcel is that if it is a little bit wet, you've got a few layers to soak it up. And the area that's got one layer, that's the bit you'll put on the skin. And with the plastic, you want it about 1/2 inch all around. So let's say I'm going to put it on my wrist. Then I'll put it on like that. And I'll just check that the plastic is covering it. And notice that not much of the plastic is touching you. Now the reason for the plastic is to prevent that poultice from chilling, which it would if the air got onto it. But it also is to protect your clothing. And then I would just bandage it. I'm getting very good at bandaging myself because I've had this sore, this wrist that was broken. So, and I always put it up between the thumb as well. And I just love this bandage because it's just got a bit of Velcro, so it'll just stay on like that. So what I always do is check that the plastic is over the cloth, because you do not want bits of ginger all through your bed. And that can stay on. Now it could stay on overnight, but if we're going to put a ginger poultice on, we will put this on about 6 o'clock. And then if by 7:38 it's getting really, really hot, we say to the person, is it feeling okay? And some people say, no, it's burning me, I can't stand it. We'll just take it off because it's already had some effect. But often when a person has arthritis, they'll say, oh no, that feels really nice. So then we say, okay, we'll leave it on overnight. And you can certainly leave it on overnight. But when someone has joint pain, especially due to inflammation, that can bring incredible relief. So we had one lady and she said, I've got this finger that will not bend. And it was swollen. She said, 18 months I've had this problem. So we made a tiny little poultice and just put it around that joint. And then we put a little bit of plastic and then we just taped it. And we did it about 6 o'clock. So about 8:30 when she's heading up to bed, I said, how's it feeling? She said, it is hot, but it feels very nice. I said, okay, well, we'll leave it all night. In the morning when she came down, she took it off and she could bend her finger. She said, I haven't been able to bend that finger for 18 months. Just a tiny little ginger poultice. But what we find is, and one lady told me her knee was very inflamed. She put the ginger poultice on, and after a few hours she couldn't believe that she could start to bend her knee. She was so excited. She said it got very hot. If it gets hot, that's an indication it's pulling inflammation out. So then she put another one on in the afternoon. Then she had a shower and put another one overnight, and when she woke up in the morning, the tissue in her knee was red, swollen with little blisters. She emailed me, she said, what have I done? And I said, you've overdone it. You've just overdone it. She's just pulled too much inflammation out, which has irritated the skin. She said, what'll I do now? I said, well, you can't do a ginger poultice for probably another week. You have to let that settle down. And so I usually say to people, just do it for maybe a couple of hours in the afternoon or in the morning. And if you're visiting someone and they've got a sore knee, you could even make the poultice up and fold it up like this, and then in the evening maybe they put it on. Obviously you wouldn't make it too long before, because it is vegetable matter that can go off. You could make it up and put it in the freezer. If you're visiting someone who was a bit disabled and couldn't make it, you could make them a whole heap and freeze them. And you could make it the way I have just made it. So that's the ginger poultice. There are some places you would never put a ginger poultice. You would never put it on tender areas. You would never put it on the eye. But I think that's a little bit of common sense, isn't it? So remember this, gingers for joint. So joint pain, joints in the fingers, the wrists, the knees, the hips. One lady put it on her hip, and that's not easy to secure it there, but what you can do is you can get some nice stretchy booty underwear, which are quite stretchy, and something like that can hold it into place. And remember your body's response. So the next one I'm going to make is the one that the lady can apply to her knee now that the tissue's all swollen, and that is potato. Potato is a very soothing, cooling poultice, and you can grate it up on the same grater. So wherever you've got tissue inflammation, so this would be a sprained ankle which has got tissue inflammation. You could do it conjunctivitis or swollen eyes, or if someone's been welding, sometimes if they've been welding all day, at the end of the day they'll have really red bloodshot eyes. This can be great for that. It's very soothing and very cooling. So the places where you would never use ginger, you could use the potato because it's such a soothing, cooling one. Ingrown toenails, splinters. You know, if you can't get the splinter out, wake up next morning and it's all red and inflamed. What are you going to do? Put a potato poultice on it, and you make it much the same way. You just fold over the top and the bottom, and then the two sides, and then you bring it round. So this would be a good size for the eye. Again, use the plastic because that stops the poultice chilling. I was asked in New Zealand to see a lady, and when she came in to see me, she had a 7-year-old boy with her, and this little boy had a very swollen finger. It was nearly twice the size. I said, "Whoa, what happened to that finger?" She said, "It's cellulitis." That's what the doctor said. I said, "Well, I can see that. What's cellulitis?" Inflammation of the cell. I said, "But what happened?" Remember, we need to know the cause. She said, "Well, he had a blister. The blister broke. He's playing in the dirt with his matchbox cars. What's next?" The dirt gets in, and then the body swelled. I said, "What have you been doing?" She said, "He's on his second course of antibiotics, and he's having sleeping tablets and painkillers." This is a 7-year-old boy. I said, "Can I try something?" So I got 2 cups, one with hot water, one with ice cold. Here in Alabama, you don't have to put ice cubes in it. It's very cold. And I put his finger in the hot as what he could bear, and then in the cold. See, the alternating hot and colds, I think we talked about this earlier, it brings a massive amount of blood to the area. So your blood's the healer. The blood has oxygen, it has nutrients, it has white blood cells, and it carries away the waste. And often in an injury, the blood tends to sit or pool in the area. So you've got two problems. One is there's not enough blood, and the other is the blood's sort of stagnated there. So alternating hot and colds brings fresh blood in, takes the old away. Do you know by the end of doing that 3 times, this little boy had a smile on his face? What did that tell you? He had relief. How long did that take? 3 minutes hot, 30 seconds ice cold 3 times in a row. That's not even 10 minutes. How long does it take for Tylenol to have an effect? Half an hour? And yet his body language told me that his pain level had gone probably from 8 out of 10 to about a 4 out of 10. That's pretty good. So we made the little poultice and put it on his finger, wrapped it around, maybe a little bit smaller than this one, bandaged it on. Whenever I apply a poultice, I always ask permission to pray, and I ask God to bless this poultice. That little boy sat there for the rest of the morning just smiling, looking at me. He had relief. His mother told me later that when they got home, he said, "Can we do that again?" Because I wouldn't be surprised if it was starting to get painful again with the fluid building up. And they did it again. And she put always put a fresh one on, because this will be absorbing waste into it. They did it again just before I went to bed, and when he woke up in the morning and they took the poultice off, everything had come away. The finger was back to its normal size. He did not have another sleeping tablet, and he did not have to have another painkiller. She said, "What will I do with the antibiotics?" I said, "I'll leave that one up to you, and I can tell you what I'd do, but I'll leave it up to you." And I don't think I have to tell her what I would do. Just a simple potato poultice. And I've seen many swellings come down. I've seen treading on a rusty nail. I've seen that come back down to normal. Whenever you've got red or raised, you've got to do something with that. So the hot and colds and then the grated potato, it's a really nice combination. If it's a wound that's deep, then you do the hot and colds. It will keep it open until it heals from the inside out. The only way tetanus can get a hold on the body is if it's a wound that is sealed on the outside and hasn't sealed on the inside. And wherever the wound happened, if there was there's horse organism there, because horses carry tetanus. But we've dealt with many a rusty nail puncture, usually in the foot, by hot and colds and grated potato. How long do you do it for? As long as it takes. If you do it 3 nights, that might be enough. If the next night is looking red, what do? Just do it again. Just do it again. So that's the grated potato. They have slightly different areas that you use it in. What I'd like to look at now is cayenne pepper. Cayenne pepper is a remarkable herb. Cayenne pepper is a blood mover. And Leviticus 17:11 in the Bible, it says the life of the flesh is in the blood. And basically that's what hot and colds are doing. They're moving the blood. And cayenne pepper will bring blood to an area. Cayenne pepper can be used internally and it can be used externally. Internally, it can be used for a sore throat. You might think, well, that's the last thing you feel like taking if you've got a sore throat. If you take it, yes, it'll tingle, but when the tingle settles down within a couple of minutes, you'll find that the sore throat has been relieved. And you'll notice that it's in the flu bomb. You can also take it for low hydrochloric acid. If someone's has a lot of bloating, that can be low hydrochloric acid. See, this will wake anything up. Internally, out of the gut and into the blood, it thins the blood. What it will also do is it'll open the capillaries and it will strengthen the arterial walls. So it's a great additive to people who've had a stroke or who've had a heart attack. They're often put on blood thinners, no need for blood thinners. you can take the cayenne pepper. How much? You might start with 1/4 teaspoon in a little water 3 times a day. Personally, I think it's the easiest way to take it. 1/4 teaspoon into 1/3 cup of water and just throw it down. Might tingle a little, but then it settles quickly. Some people love it and put it on their food. 3 times a day. 3 times a day. Build up to 1/2 teaspoon 3 times. If someone can't handle that, they could have maybe a capsule 3 times a day. If someone's coming off medication, it's important to have it 3 times a day. Cayenne pepper can be used externally. And where you use cayenne pepper externally, and you might be surprised at what I'm about to say, if someone's had a cut and you sprinkle that into the cut, it'll stop the bleeding. And it can even help to pull the cut together. Obviously there might be some serious cuts that might need stitches. And you might also remember the other day I talked about pine pitch. Pine pitch can be poured into a deeper cut, and as that dries it'll seal it. But cayenne pepper can be used to stop bleeding with a cut. Cayenne pepper can also be used to bring blood to an area. And when a person has had chemotherapy, often they suffer from peripheral neuropathy, which means they lose feeling in their feet. And I am told that this is an incredibly uncomfortable experience. One man said, "I can't feel my feet, but when I go to bed at night, it feels like there are 2 rocks hanging on the end of my legs. It is so uncomfortable." And so what we did was we put cayenne pepper compresses on the bottom of his feet. So to make the cayenne pepper compress, we fold up a piece of cling wrap a few times, about the size of the bottom of the foot, and we fold over a couple of layers of kitchen paper. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to sprinkle some olive oil onto that. And the reason you sprinkle the olive oil onto that is so that it'll cause the cayenne pepper to stick to it. I don't pour the olive oil on that because otherwise it's too much olive oil, and then olive oil will go all through the bed and all through the sheets, and that is no fun at all. So I just dot the paper with a little olive oil, and what you'll see when I've done this, when I put the cayenne pepper on, the cayenne pepper sticks to it. If you don't put the oil on, the cayenne pepper just falls off. But just that little bit of olive oil will cause the cayenne pepper to stay there, and yet it's not enough olive oil so that your socks and your sheets and everything gets oily. And I don't like oil on sheets, so I go to a little bit of extra effort to make sure that this is not going to leak oil. So you'll see that I've just dotted it with a little bit of olive oil. And usually you put about a teaspoon per foot, and the foot goes straight onto this. So I spread that over. And there it is. Now if I hadn't put the oil on, that would all be falling off, yeah? So that's the reason for the oil. And then the foot goes straight onto that. And then you can put a sock on. And if you think it might oil out a bit, you can put a plastic bag over the sock if you so wish. And you put that on both feet. I visited a lady once who had peripheral neuropathy after she'd had her chemotherapy. She's an 80-year-old lady, so I made 6 of these and I just folded them over like that and put them in a snap lock bag. So she had enough for the week. If I put that on my feet and woke up tomorrow morning, my feet would feel like they're on fire because my feet are always warm. They're always warm because I make sure they're always warm. But if someone had cold feet and they put that on their feet, then by morning their feet are just nice and warm. So it can be used for people with cold feet, because feet should never get cold. Perfect health requires perfect circulation, and perfect circulation means that my feet and my hands are the same temperature the rest of my body. And what happens when a person has cold feet and they just let them stay cold, then after a few years they start to lose feeling in the edge of their toes. Do you know, if this continues, those toes will go gangrene and then maybe even be removed. So let's just keep our feet warm. So it's important to keep the feet warm. So that's the cayenne pepper compress that can be put on the feet for peripheral neuropathy, if someone's lost feeling in their feet. And the man who told me that he had no feeling in his feet and it felt like there were lumps of, or two big rocks on the end of his legs, we put the cayenne compress on the bottom of his feet. And in the morning he said, I slept all night, I had no uncomfortable feeling. We missed a night, and I think it's a good idea to give one night a break, and we did it again, and the next morning he said, I've got pins and needles in my feet. Now what's that? That's the first sign of life coming back to his feet. He came to us because he had multiple sclerosis. He was in a wheelchair. The man was late 50s, and at the end of the program he stood up, he could stand up at this stage, and he had tears. He said, I came here just for a break. He said, I had no idea that I would get this sort of help just from a cayenne pepper compress. Cayenne pepper is very safe. In fact, there's a book in the library, it's called Back to Eden by Jethro Kloss, and he devotes half a page to every herb and he devotes 10 pages to cayenne pepper. And he quotes 2 doctors in his article. And one doctor says it's impossible to abuse cayenne pepper. Do you know what that means? You could eat a bucket of it a day and it would not hurt you. But I don't know anyone who will do that or who wants to do that. It's a bit of common sense there. And another doctor says it's impossible to cause a lesion, meaning it will never burn you. Might feel like it, but it won't. It'll heal a stomach ulcer. It will never cause one, but it can help to heal one. So that's the cayenne pepper. In fact, it's almost the first aid kit in one, is cayenne pepper. Now I'd like to look at castor oil. And castor oil is something that penetrates deep into the body. I never advise taking castor oil by mouth because it can be quite irritating. So I'm going to show you how to make a pack. So here is, I think we're familiar with them, they're blueies. Oh, this is a greenie, but it's an incontinence pad. So what we do is we get those and we cut them and we take off that top layer and we put several layers in there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I've got 6 layers of that oil sheeting in there. You see, the thicker the compress, the more castor oil it can hold, and the more castor oil that can go into your body. And what we do then is we tape the edges. And the reason we go to a bit of effort to do this, you can also stitch the corners, because this is a compress, so it can be used again and again and again and again. And the beauty of it is it has a plastic backing on it, and you want that plastic to protect your clothing. A castor oil compress is something that I apply to my hand every night. So you might notice I've still got a little bit of swelling in my hand. It's been only 8 weeks since I broke this. The X-ray confirms that my bones are healed, but there's still a little bit of swelling there because it was quite a serious break. So I've brought you over my castor oil compress, and I've used one of those sheets that the 15-year-old's knee went through, and I've actually got about 10 layers there, and I put that on my hand like this, and I bandage it. I'm getting very good at this because I do it every night. because I quickly discovered my husband's not a nurse. He does it in a bit of a hurry and doesn't do it quite right. And so there's my castor oil compress that I will sleep with. I sleep with it every night. So why am I putting a castor oil compress on this? Because that was quite serious damage. My ulna was fractured, my radius was totally broken and out of place. Whenever you've got an injury, you've got the possibility of scar tissue building up. And so this is very good at stopping scar tissue developing. And many people have problems years later after an injury from scar tissue. So if someone maybe had appendix taken out 10 years ago, sometimes they get more problems now because of scar tissue building up from that. So castor oil will break up any unnatural substance. So it'll break up a bone spur. It'll break up kidney stones. It'll break up gallstones. It will even help to break cataracts up. So you can put a drop of castor oil on your finger and wipe it over your eye, then do it to the other eye. Could you put it in your eye? Absolutely. It's just easier to wipe it over your eye though, because it's so sticky. So if you know what castor oil does, you start to know where to apply it. When I was in I think it was Nebraska last year, a lady came to me and she was in her 70s. She said, my foot had this bunion on it, and the bunion came out about 1/2 inch. She said, I've been applying a castor oil compress to it every night for 2 months and it's gone. So that's good news. So any bony formations, bone spurs, very good at breaking up bone spurs. Obviously it's not going to do it overnight, and it's not going to do it sometimes in a month. Depends how long it's been there, depends how big it is, depends how serious it is. I've known ladies to break up fibroids by applying the castor oil compress. This would be a good size for the abdomen. So for endometriosis, it'll break up endometrial pockets, it'll break up cysts, it'll break up fibroids. And as you heard today, it's also important to balance the hormones. So balance the hormones, because that's that high estrogen that causes those growths, and then apply the castor oil compress. And we've seen ladies helped again and again with that. You can also use a castor oil compress on the chest if there's a congestion in the chest. You could wear it on the abdomen, not only for fibroids, but also for constipation. I met a lady who told me she'd conquered her irritable bowel with castor oil compresses. She said, my husband's a doctor and I was not interested in what he had to offer. And I'd heard about the castor oil. So castor oil can be used in so many areas. If someone's got a sore knee, they might do a ginger poultice one night, they might do a potato poultice the other night, and then another night they might use the castor oil, and just observe what your body likes. I've had in my thumb a little bit of rheumatoid arthritis, because I have inherited the genes there. If I wear this castor oil compress every night, it never causes me any trouble. I've been wearing this compress. Well, I haven't been wearing for 8 weeks because my hand was in plaster for a while, but I've been wearing this one I've got on now for several weeks. So you can use it again and again. In the morning, I'll touch it and I'll look at my finger, and if I see oil there, I know it's still got enough oil. But if it starts to get a little bit dry, I'll put another maybe teaspoon of oil on it. Maybe after another month, I might make another one. When it starts to look a bit sad, you might make another one. But you can use the same compress for several weeks. Now you can see here we're starting to get a bit of liquid there. That's the onion syrup forming. The next one we're going to look at is charcoal. Charcoal is unique in that it absorbs and neutralizes poisons. The word absorb and neutralizing poisons is adsorb. So if I've got a dry sponge and I put it in water, it'll absorb the water. So what charcoal does is absorbs the poisons, but it neutralizes them. And that word's called adsorb. Charcoal's been used for centuries. In fact, if someone has an overdose and they go to hospital, they'll be given charcoal. They use charcoal in hospital to filter blood for dialysis. NASA used it in outer space to filter the water and to filter the air. Many masks have charcoal in them because charcoal absorbs and neutralizes poisons. So once that charcoal absorbs the poison and neutralizes, now it's safe. That's why they use it in poisoning. Someone's been poisoned or overdosed, because once it's absorbed those chemicals, it's now safe to go through the gastrointestinal tract because it's neutralized. You can use it externally for snake bites, bee stings, spider bites, tick bites, wasp bites. It'll absorb and neutralize the poisons. But putting charcoal in water is like putting dirt with water. So I'm going to mix it with psyllium husks. And I'm using a little plastic bag here because I'm going to show you a mess-free way to make a charcoal poultice. Because charcoal is messy stuff. So you put about equal charcoal and psyllium husks in there. And now you quickly put the lid on because it's messy stuff. When I lived in the rainforest, I used the charcoal out of my fuel stove. But you know, it comes out in big chunks and you've got to break it up with a rolling pin, or you put it in the blender. You're going to have a black blender for a while. And if you do put it in the blender, you can't take the lid off the blender for about half an hour or you get black dust everywhere. But now that I'm civilized, I just buy activated charcoal. And activated charcoal is charcoal that has been made by slow combustion and also a spray of water that helps to activate it, which means it just absorbs more poisons. So I've just mixed the psyllium and the charcoal together, and now I'm going to put some water in. And then the beauty of it being in the bag is again, it's mess-free. But as you'll see by the time I finish this, I have another purpose. And so I just massage that because, as we all know, when you put psyllium with water, it goes like a soft jelly. And when you put water with charcoal, it's like mixing dirt and water. It doesn't mix very well. So I'm massaging this around and it's going like a soft jelly. Yes, it's actually doing exactly what I wanted it to do. And now I'm going to press it out. I'm going to press it out into the bag. So I'll just get a bit more air out. So I'm pressing it out so it's taking the shape of the bag. So you see I've got a thin gel square now. This thin gel square of charcoal mixed with the psyllium husk, and I just put that in the fridge, or I could put it in the freezer. Someone's got a bee sting, someone's got a spider bite. I quickly get this out and I cut the square for the size. I cut the edge to get the top plastic off, and then I put it straight on the spider bite or wasp bite or bee sting. So now that charcoal gel is on the skin, and the top is plastic because remember the other side is plastic, and you can just bandage that on. And if someone's in pain, that's very quick. And you can freeze it, because being psyllium, obviously, if you keep it in the fridge for too long, it could go mouldy. And when someone's got a bee sting or an ant bite or a whatever bite or a spider bite or a snake bite, and it's been in the freezer and it's very cold, that can be very nice on a red sting. So that's the mess-free way to make your charcoal poultice. And again, it's just there, it's just quick when you need it. And charcoal absorbs and neutralizes poisons, so that's its value. How much water do you put in? You do about equal water, equal charcoal, equal psyllium, and let's say you do 2 teaspoons of each of those, you probably do about 4 or 5 teaspoons of water. I'm a little bit of a guesser. And if it's too thick, just put a little bit more water in. And that's how you make your charcoal poultice. And so ends our demo on poultices. And again, as I suspected, our onion syrup is being made. So it'll be fully made by this time tomorrow, so maybe Thursday morning breakfast you can all have a little taste of the onion syrup.